Have you ever really stopped to think about the secret histories hiding all around us? In the food we eat, our culture, even something as simple as a bar of soap? Well, today, we're going to uncover this incredible story that connects the African continent to the Americas. It's a story about some seriously resilient plants and the even more resilient people who carried them. Let's dig in. Seriously? Just let that question sink in for a second. What if I told you that some of the most common things in your kitchen carry a secret history? A history that stretches back thousands of years and crosses entire oceans. A story of survival, of deep knowledge, and of just unbelievable resistance. Okay, take a look at this. That palm olive soap you've seen a million times, the name literally comes from the African oil palm and olive oils. And the original flavor of Coca-Cola, that came from the kola nut, a West African crop that's been used in ceremonies for centuries. And that classic southern dish, Hopping John, is built around the cowpea. You probably know it as the black-eyed pea, which also started its journey in Africa. See? These aren't just ingredients. They're like clues to a hidden global history. So to really understand this story, we have to start with the plants themselves. And look, these were not just any crops. These were botanical survivors. They were specifically adapted for super harsh conditions, which made them absolutely priceless, not just in Africa, but on the forced journey across the world. Let's start with the watermelon. Now, in America, this amazing fruit got twisted into this really painful, racist symbol after the Civil War, used to paint black people as lazy and simple. But that hateful stereotype is a universe away from the fruit's real origin. Modern science, like DNA analysis, points right to West Africa as the place where the sweet watermelon we know was first domesticated. It wasn't a symbol of laziness, it was a symbol of incredible agricultural skill. And its history is truly ancient. I mean, look at this timeline. We see the first proof of people growing it over 5,000 years ago in North Africa. 1,000 years after that, it was so important. It was literally painted inside the tombs of Egyptian pharaohs. From there, it spread all over the Middle East, India, and China. And then finally, in the 1490s, it's introduced to the Americas, where enslaved Africans who, and this is key, already had this deep knowledge of how to grow it, started cultivating this familiar plant in a brand new land. So, what made the watermelon so essential? Well, it was its unbelievable resilience. It's what's called a xerophyte, which is just a fancy way of saying it's built for the desert. It actually produces an amino acid that helps it handle extreme drought. Plus, its thick leaves and super deep roots are designed to find and hold on to every last drop of water. And here's a huge bonus for farmers. Its vines spread out and choke out weeds, which means less backbreaking labor. It is, in every sense of the word, a profile in resilience. The watermelon's story of resilience is totally echoed by another vital crop, the cowpea. A lot of us in the US know it as the black-eyed pea. And just like the watermelon, while its story is now completely woven into the American South, its roots are planted firmly in tropical West Central Africa. And its importance to Africa has never ever faded. Just think about this number, 98%. Today, the African continent produces nearly all of the world's cowpeas. It's still a critical staple food for over 200 million people. That's just staggering. The cowpea is a true powerhouse. It's one of the most drought-resistant food crops on the entire planet. It gives you critical protein and amino acids that you might not get from other starchy foods. And, as a legume, it naturally fertilizes the soil by fixing nitrogen. This incredible resilience made it an absolutely essential food for survival and, of course, the foundation of soul food traditions. So this brings us to the human side of the story. The journey of these crops across the Atlantic wasn't an accident. No, it was directly tied to the forced migration of millions of Africans and the profound, deep agricultural knowledge they carried with them. This right here is the key. You have to get this. They weren't just laborers, they were skilled agriculturalists. When they arrived in the Americas, they were applying thousands of years of accumulated expertise to grow these life-sustaining crops in a new and, frankly, hostile environment. This knowledge was an essential tool for survival. But this knowledge wasn't just used for survival inside the system of slavery, it was also a tool for active, powerful resistance. As this quote points out, the experience of one particular group, the Maroons, is absolutely essential to understanding the fight for freedom that literally shaped the entire Western Hemisphere. So, let's talk about them, the Maroons. They represent one of the most remarkable stories of resistance in all of human history. They didn't just endure slavery, they escaped it, and they forged their own destiny. The word itself tells a story. It comes from the Spanish word cimarrón, which was a term for domesticated animals that had gone wild. It was meant as an insult, right? To call them untamed. But the Maroons, they took that word and they reclaimed it as a badge of honor, a symbol of their unbreakable spirit. And this was not just a few isolated incidents. Look at this map. The Maroon movement was vast. We're talking from the Great Dismal Swamp in the southern United States to the mountains of Jamaica, all the way into the rainforests of Brazil and Suriname. Hundreds of independent Maroon communities popped up. They built free societies right in the heart of slave territories, and they were a constant, powerful challenge to the entire system. This timeline just reveals a struggle for freedom that went on for centuries. It started almost immediately with the first documented escape way back in 1502. Between the 1600s and 1800s, over 50 distinct settlements were set up in North America alone. By 1739, the Jamaican Maroons had fought the British Empire, the world's superpower at the time, to a standstill, forcing them to sign peace treaties. And in 1804, their influence was critical in launching the Haitian Revolution, which established the world's very first independent Black republic. Just amazing. But the Maroons didn't just fight. In the freedom that they won for themselves, they became innovators. They started creating entirely new societies and cultures out of the pieces of the old world. This process is known as creolization. So first, they escaped into these really tough landscapes. There, they had to adapt, often learning from indigenous peoples how to survive. Then, they started fusing this new knowledge with their own diverse African traditions, and even some elements from European culture. And out of this incredible mix, they forged something totally new. New languages, new foods, new music, new ways of governing themselves. And here's a perfect snapshot of that process in action. We're seeing an Aluku Maroon woman in French Guiana, and she's baking cassava cakes. Now, cassava is an African staple, but she's preparing it using a method learned from the Native American peoples who also lived in the rainforest. It's a living, breathing example of this dynamic cultural fusion. And this creative blending touched every single part of their lives. Their herbal medicine combined African and Native American botanical knowledge, their music mixed different rhythmic traditions, their spiritual beliefs, even their Creole languages were this dynamic mix of influences, creating societies that were vibrant, unique, and profoundly resilient. Okay, so why does all this matter today? Because this isn't just a story from the past. It is a living history, and it has these profound lessons about where our cultures actually come from and what it truly means to be resilient. This history is not a museum piece. It is a living legacy. Right here, we see a modern-day Jamaican Maroon in a Kampong town. He is celebrating a treaty that was signed with the British way back in 1739 by the leader Kojo. To this very day, they maintain their own systems of local government, carrying on this continuous, unbroken tradition of freedom and self-determination. So ultimately, when we trace the journey of a watermelon or a cowpea from an African seed all the way to an American story, we learn a really profound lesson. The story was never just about the plant. It's always been about the ingenuity, the knowledge, and the incredible resilience of the people who nurtured it, and who used it to build new worlds. And that leaves us with a final question for you. Once you start looking for these things, you start seeing these connections everywhere. So what hidden histories are waiting in your town, or on your plate, or in the stories your family tells? The world is just full of them, and they're waiting to be uncovered.